How's it going, Yankee fans? Welcome back to Fireside Yankees with Alex and Ryan. Hope everyone had a great, healthy, safe New Year's Eve, and 2025 is here. Hoping you guys have a great year and plenty of success and prosperity and fun and joy and great health. Everything in between. Of course, we hope the Yankees win us a chip and make it an even better year coming off of last year's defeat. But today we wanted to take a look at a interesting trade prospect or trade proposal and target for the Yankees. We have not talked about this player very much, despite the fact, Ryan, you are a big proponent of this player. And the Tampa Bay Rays, you don't really always want to trade with them because you know if you're the Yankees, they're going to try to price gouge you. But with that being the case, this is a player that has tremendous upside. We've seen him hit 150 WRC plus in his career. We've seen him put together consistent above average offensive seasons year after year. He's a solid defensive player, but he does have some injury concerns. And I'm wondering, what would the Tampa Bay Rays be willing to move him for? And would the Yankees be willing to give it? But, Ryan, we're going to talk about Brandon Lowe today. Really interesting player, so much upside, perfect fit. I mean, you're going to talk about all the metrics, I'm sure, about why he would fit perfectly in Yankee Stadium. But before we dive into it, how you do today, my friend?
I'm doing pretty well, man. When it comes to Brandon Lowe, when it comes to the Tampa Bay Rays, the reason that I think there's smoke around that kind of trade, or the idea that the Rays would trade Brandon Lowe, is number one, there was some talk about it at the deadline this past year. And number two, more importantly, if we're talking about the Tampa Bay Rays, he got a nice little pay raise when they picked up his club option to $10.5 million. Now, the Tampa Bay Rays have paid contracts worth $10.5 million before. It's not like they're completely against the idea of paying a player, but this would be one of the highest contracts on the team. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it is. It is. It's $10.5 million. It's more than anyone else on the team. And when you have a player like that on the Rays roster, you kind of assume there's got to be some sort of smoke around them getting traded. He has 2025 and then a club option for 2026 as his money. In 2026, he'll make $11.5 million. Is Brandon Lowe worth $10 to $11 million? Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. It's just that for the Rays, who have a very tight payroll and a tight budget, that answer isn't so cut and clear, or so clear cut. He had a 123 WRC plus this season with 21 home runs. He hit 21 home runs the year prior in 109 games. This year he did it in 107 games. Similar WRC plus. He hits the ball extremely hard. He has excellent batted ball data. He is super aggressive in zone. And that's something I think bodes well for a team like the Yankees. Now, there are a couple of things that the Yankees do pretty well and have always done well, even in years where they don't have great rosters. Look at the 2023 Yankees, for example, and that's kind of I compare the 2023 and 2021 Yankees to kind of like the bottom barrel judge teams, right? Those are the two, in my opinion, two clear-cut worst teams in the Aaron Judge era. We know the 2023 Yankees were not very good. We know the 2021 Yankees were not very good. The 2021 Yankees and 2023 Yankees also share this distinction of, being better than they should have been. Their run differential suggests they should have been a lot worse, but both of them still hit home runs. In fact, the Yankees this year, according to Steamer, project to lead baseball in home runs as a team. Brandon Lowe would add more home run power, and that certainly helps, but the other thing you're getting in Lowe is you're getting a guy who can get on base at a decent clip. This past season, I know a 311 OBP isn't great, but a 328 the year prior will certainly play. You're taking a guy out of Tampa Bay where, pitchers tend to have way more success. In fact, when you look at Stuff Plus and how Stuff Plus is affected by ballpark, Tampa Bay seems to have the most dramatic effect on vertical movement. Pitches tend to have more ride there, and if you look at what's going to bother a power hitter, it's going to be a fastball up in the zone. So if you kind of mitigate the effects of, from Tampa Bay, from that ballpark, and obviously they're not going to be playing there this year, they're going to be playing in George M. Steinbrenner Field. If you mitigate those effects, you kind of limit the IVB, which is induced vertical movement, that pitchers are getting at home at Tampa Bay. Lowe's going to face some, not easier pitching, but it's just going to have an easier time hitting the baseball. I don't know if that's going to have a dramatic effect on his numbers, but I know that is a real thing. There are hitters who've talked about it, including Willie Adames, who just recently signed a mega deal with the San Francisco Giants and was awesome with the Milwaukee Brewers. If you look at expected home runs this past season, Lowe would have hit 20 instead of 21, but the year prior it would have been 23 instead of 21. So I would say roughly would be about the same in terms of hitting for power at Yankee Stadium. Maybe the Yankees are able to get him to pull the ball more, but I don't think he has to do that. He has power to all fields. He has incredible raw power. I don't see him as the kind of hitter who needs to rely on that kind of stuff. The Yankees, again, they need to get more offense. They need to hit better at second base or third base, depending on where Jazz plays. Lowe would play second base in the scenario. He does have some experience at first base. The Rays played him a little more at first base this year than they have in previous years. You get more insurance at first base potentially. But Alex, if you want to make this lineup more dynamic, if you want this team to really hit this year, Brandon Lowe would certainly help. And defensively, he's gotten better. He's always been kind of known as a butcher at second base. The past 2 seasons, +3 run value at second base and +4 outs above average. That'll certainly play.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, when we're talking about infield solutions, right now you have DJ LeMahieu and, of course, Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone are doing their DJ LeMahieu propaganda streak recently and saying, oh, well, we've seen him get healthier and he can do this, he can do that. I'm like, guys, there's a laundry list of reasons that DJ LeMahieu is never going to return to the same player he once was. We're talking about multiple injuries, regression, a lost athleticism. It's been 2 years. And that difference between 34 and 36, it's substantial. You go from really good to really bad in that amount of time. Ask Paul Goldschmidt, who was an MVP 2 years ago. So, you kind of look at DJ LeMahieu's arc. He's done. He's cooked. He's toasted, in my opinion. You look at Oswaldo Cabrera. I love him as a super utility man. I don't want him starting. I think he's great. You plug and play option when guys are injured and inconsistent. I think he's a nice insurance policy, but he's not the policy. He's not the starting policy. So I do think that that's where I view Oswaldo Cabrera. Oswald Peraza, he just doesn't have the offensive profile. He was barely, I think he was slightly below average. I think, a 95 WRC plus in AAA. He's not going to play well in the majors, and it's been a couple of years since we even saw him flash that level of upside. So nobody on this team right now, internal solutions and infield, have the capacity to be a championship caliber piece. And guys, you have Garrett Cole at the back end of his prime. You have Aaron Judge, who just came off an MVP, and you just don't know when that prime is going to start to dwindle. You need to make a move to win now. There is no other solution. I'm fine trading prospects because, look, next year, if the Yankees go out and trade a couple prospects to get a controllable infielder that's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, you still have enough money to go and pursue a Kyle Tucker in free agency if you want to go in that route. You have money coming off the books. $16 million you have in Aaron Hicks, who's being paid $10 million to not play, and then Rizzo, $6 million in a buyout option. That all counts against the luxury tax threshold. So they are paying $16 million for players to not be here. You could argue, depending on how well Kyle Tucker plays, or maybe he doesn't play as well this year, that's almost half of what his contract will be. That money right there. So, I do think that the Yankees have a lot of versatility in how they can improve this roster. They have Garrett Cole under contract for years, Max Fried on a new 8-year deal, Carlos Rodon still under contract for 4 more seasons, Luis Seal's pre-arbitration, and so is Clark Schmidt. You have 5 arms that are locked in for the next 4 to 5 years at the very least. So, looking at what the Yankees can do in terms of other things, you already have your starting rotation set in stone, cemented. You don't have to spend any more money there in the future. And all you have to do is increase and improve other positions. You already have right field filled with Aaron Judge. You have left fields filled with a pre-arbitration prospect in Jason Dominguez, pre-arbitration shortstop in Anthony Volpe. You have Paul Goldschmidt on a 1-year deal, and maybe Ben Rice develops and becomes that long-term option there as he gets better, hopefully. That's what we're hoping for. He is that platoon option with Paul Goldschmidt. He's a lefty. He can do that. Ryan, maybe that is what the plan is for the Yankees at first base. Like, Paul Goldschmidt is the perfect mentor for a young player like Ben Rice. Hey, Ben, follow Paul Goldschmidt around like a puppy and learn everything on how to be a professional. That's what I'd be telling Ben Rice right now. Get ready to have the best possible mentor on human Earth, on the planet, to become that long-term solution. This is your chance. This is your chance to really soak in that information and then show it in 2026. So I think it'll be fun to see Ben Rice's development this year. But the Yankees, looking at third base, second base, they have Jazz Chisholm under contract for 2 more seasons. Austin Wells is pre-arbitration. You have so much controllable talent. Trade some prospects to get a solution in the infield, and then you have the money to spend if you want to get Kyle Tucker at center field next year, because Cody Bellinger probably opts out of his deal. He wants long-term money, and he's running out of time, and I think he profiles so well in Yankee Stadium. He's going to put together a really nice year. The money that you lose, so Cody Bellinger's being paid, $26 million, and then you get $16 million back from the players you're not playing, that don't even aren't even on the roster right now. That money with Cody Bellinger plus the $16 million that you are paying right now for guys not here equals Kyle Tucker's annual salary, like in theory, right? So like that's kind of how I see the Yankees kind of progressing here, is they have this ability to offload salary and move on and then reallocate it to a legit superstar that's going to basically be your championship caliber piece that you add to an outfield that's already just chock full of talent. So, Ryan, looking at it, I don't think there's any real excuse for the Yankees not to make a move. Like Brandon Lowe, you said $10.5 million club option this year. I believe it's $11.5 million in 2026. So you have controllable asset there that's not that much. It's not very expensive for a player that's so above average offensively or has the capacity to be. The injuries are a concern, but whatever. You have Oswaldo Cabrera to help mitigate that. So, do you think it's a now or never for them? I think like they would be absolutely out of their mind not to be trying to find the best possible infield solution. I would trade the farm, or well, not the farm, but I would trade from the farm if Brendan Donovan was available. We love him. Obviously, you guys know that already. We don't know if he is available, but Tampa listens to everybody, on everybody. So I do think that Brandon Lowe is a great fit because he probably is available, and I'm willing to trade prospects to a Rays team that's not very good, and we don't really have to worry about them being a contender for a piece that's controllable for the next 2 years, and it's not a financial burden that's going to hold us back from making a big acquisition like a Kyle Tucker next offseason.
Yeah, so one of the things I really like about Brandon Lowe in regards to, you just talked about Kyle Tucker, you just talked about like future outlook. It's clear that the Yankees have navigated this offseason trying to avoid long-term deals to players who are not full, like to a position player market that just kind of sucks, right? Outside of Juan Soto, I don't think there's a single player here you feel comfortable giving 7-8 years to. There are players you don't feel comfortable giving 4-5 years to, right? Teoscar Hernandez at 3 years, like I think that's actually a pretty good deal. But there was always that inroads for the Dodgers. Teoscar Hernandez was very adamant and very public about his desire to stay with Los Angeles. And I don't know how Hernandez would have played in left field here. So, Alex, out of all the position players who are available in free agency, I get why the Yankees have kind of been skittish about giving money to these guys. The other thing I'd like to point out about Brandon Lowe is, as you mentioned, that 2026 club option. It allows the Yankees to decline it if he doesn't play well, or pick it up, and then you've got a rental second baseman. So this team can still complete having a lot of roster turnover the next one or the next 1 to 2 off seasons. They don't have to be kind of anchored down by 5-6 contracts. They're not spending like drunken sailors. They're not being morons about this. Look, if this team and look, granted, this team could be bad, and if this team is bad, obviously they'll get the criticism that they'd be owed in that scenario. But the thing is that they haven't tied themselves to a lot of players on this roster, and I'm happy with that. I think that's the right way to go about this. I think there are better players to tie your money to. I think there are better players to splurge on that are not going to be in this free agent class. And I'm not saying to say I'm saving money for other free agent classes. I kind of hate doing that. I think that if you're in a contention window, you should go for it. But it's not necessarily saving money for free agent classes. It's just not anchoring. It's not forcing yourself to bet on players you don't believe in. That's the way I view it. I think that's a more justifiable reason to not spend on certain infielders on this market. But Brandon Lowe, he's got the ability to be a top of the order bat, a middle of the order bat, kind of wherever you want to plug and play him. If you want to go Bellinger, Judge, Lowe, Stanton, you could go to Chisholm from there, Goldschmidt, Wells, Dominguez, Volpe. That's a pretty complete lineup. That's a lineup with tons of pop. They're probably going to project closer. Like, they're probably going to start separating themselves from the pack in terms of home run projections. And I don't say that, projections are everything. They're 100% accurate. There's never been wrong. Being projected to be first in home runs as a team means you're 100% going to be first. It just means that your median outcome, your 50th percentile outcome, is higher than everybody else's. And if we're being honest, that probably means that those 99th percentile outcomes are higher than everybody else's as well. The other thing I'd like to point out when it comes to projections, because I think something that kind of goes around social media is that every single year the Yankees project to be a pretty good team. So people have it confused that because they project to be good every year, that projections just favor the Yankees. Look, projections have basically said the Yankees are going to be pretty good every year since 2018. And if you look at win-loss records since 2018, and I'm going to pull them up now, you look at the best win percentages in baseball: Dodgers, Astros, Braves, Yankees. The Yankees have lived up to the projections. They've been projected to be one of the best teams in baseball every single year, and lo and behold, they've been one of the best teams in baseball virtually every single year. Granted, 2023 is kind of fresh in everybody's mind still. We aren't too far removed from that. But I would say that there are teams in this group who have also had disaster years. The Rays are right behind the Yankees here. They just had a pretty abhorrent 2024 season. They were uncompetitive for basically the entire year. The only time they were competitive was towards the end. At that point, the wild card had kind of taken shape already. Very similar to the Yankees when they got hot just too late into the season, and they were in a pretty stacked American League in 2023 versus 2024, the American League far more open. The Astros in 2020 finished below 500. You know what I mean? Granted, shortened season, but that did happen. The Dodgers really haven't had a down year. That's the one, like they haven't had the, and it reflects in this. They have 656 wins. The Astros have 618, right? The Dodgers have been way more successful than just everyone else over that time span. They have more rings than everyone else over that window. I know it's by one ring, but still, they have more wins than everyone else. They're the premier organization in baseball. I know the Yankees want to be better. You want to be as good, if not better, than the Dodgers. But again, I just think, and the Braves are third here. Like, if you look at teams that project well traditionally in these models, it's teams that have played up to that projection basically over multiple years. So if you want to go year to year, you want to compare year-to-year projections to the Yankees win-loss record and say this one year the Yankees are projected to do well and they weren't very good. This year they're projected to not be very good and they ended up being good. You can find outliers in any data set. But over a large period of time, you find that projections are pretty accurate, and projections do feel pretty good about the Yankees, and therefore I line up with the data, and Brandon Lowe would only make this team better. What I wanted to ask you, Alex, is if you were to trade for Brandon Lowe, what would you be willing to give up? I'm assuming Dominguez wouldn't be on your table here. He wouldn't be on my table to trade here. Who's off the table for you? Who are you willing to trade? Kind of what would you be willing to do to bring him to the Bronx?
It's a good question. Brandon with 2 years of control, I mean, a little bit of money, so he's valuable, but the injury concerns as well. I don't think I'd be willing to give up Spencer Jones to get him, just because the control isn't enough and you still have to pay, and I'm concerned about the injuries. So, I'd be willing to give, I don't know, like, would you be willing to give up Spencer Jones, or would you rather give up like a Chase Hampton if they would be interested in that?
That's a great question. I think I would be willing to trade Spencer Jones if he's like the main piece in this deal. Like, I wouldn't trade Spencer Jones and then like 2-3 guys who I consider better than him. Granted, I think if you were to look at the 2-3 guys, like Dominguez would have to be in that pool.
Would you trade Rice? Would Rice
yes.
be a valuable piece in that?
I would trade Rice in this. I know that's kind of a tough blow because your first base depth chart is very reliant on, like, hey, if Goldschmidt isn't good, then you have Bellinger or you have Rice. But Bellinger plays into this equation as well. He has extensive experience at first base. You have Brendan Lowe, who has played first base and did play some first base last year. You have Cabrera, who's played first base. So I've said this I've started to like say this a little more recently on podcasts, and I think I've kind of opened myself up to this. The Yankees are probably fine at first base, right? Like, they have a lot of like playable options. Right now, I consider them having 2.5 playable options. Rice, Bellinger, and Goldschmidt, and then Rice is like, I consider him playable, but I get that universally speaking, he's not considered playable. I disagree with that, but again, I think he is. Cabrera's a fine if he plays like 2 or 3 games there this year. Like, oh well, I wouldn't be like heartbroken over it. I wouldn't be like, this team sucks, it's over, the season's over, pack your bags, go settle, go start tanking. I'm not like, that would be a little much. That's fine with me. Like, LeMahieu shouldn't play a game for the Yankees. I'm sorry. Like, I don't really think he should. I know he's at that first base depth chart, but I'm not really acknowledging him as capable first base help. I think it'd be fine. Like, if it comes down to like Ben Rice or Brandon Lowe, and the Rays are like, if you don't give us Ben Rice, yeah, you don't get Brandon Lowe. And my package of players offered isn't like Jason Dominguez or George Lombard Jr. Like, I'd be like, yeah, you know what? Gotta do what I gotta do. I also wonder how much the Yankees eating money here matters, as you mentioned. Like, just saying, yeah, we'll take every single penny of that contract off the books for you. We have no problem doing that. I wonder if that's out with the Rays here. The Rays are also weird because they like weird prospects. So who you and I may consider to be uber valuable, high-level player, the kind of guy that the Yankees shouldn't consider trading in this deal, is maybe someone they don't value as highly, and someone that we'd be like, who cares if we trade them? Might be someone that they turn into a star. So that's where it gets dangerous with the Rays. It's not, that they, cast a spell on the Yankees and make them think Jason Dominguez isn't good. It's that they identify guys in a farm system who aren't rated highly, who don't have enough value to get moved elsewhere, or aren't going to make the roster. And they pluck them from organizations. They make them better than they should have been, or better than they were in the previous organization. And then you go, crap, really? We traded this guy and he ends up being their 4-starter? How the hell did this happen? You know what I mean? So, I look at guys like Cam Schlittler. Cam Schlittler is someone who's not very highly known in the organization. He had a really strong year this year, finished top 3 in strikeouts for minor league pitchers in the Yankee organization, pitching high A, pitching double A, has a very weird fastball. It's kind of a cutter. And if you look at some of the cut ride fastball guys with prominence in the league, or guys who have fastballs that are basically cutters. Corbin Burns comes to mind, Max Fried, Justin Steele. Those are some of the prominent guys in that group. Schlittler has a huge frame. He's like 6'7", tons of extension, good breaking ball. Like, he profiles to me as someone where, like, I don't think the average listener of the Fireside Yankees podcast is going to be like, shoot, no, you can't go Cam Schlittler. Like, what are we doing? You know what I mean? But I would also say that Cam Schlittler is the kind of guy where, like, the data loves him. So I would be a little weary of, like, why would the Rays want him? They want him for a reason. You'd feel that way about any guy in the organization. Another name that I'll throw out here that I think could be of interest to the Tampa Bay Rays, I wanted to mention Rock Riggio, because Rock Riggio has really good strikeout to walk rates. He pulls the ball in the air a ton. He has good fly ball rates. Like, this is a guy who I think with a second year in pro ball could have a really good year. Brendan Jones, really good athlete, got drafted this past season, outfielder, really impressed in single A and high A in a small sample size. So, there are definitely outlier guys on the periphery of the Yankee farm system where it's like they're not slam dunk top 10 guys or anything like that, but they are guys who I think would be interesting for the Rays in this deal. If I were to put together a mock trade, would you do this? I'd say Ben Rice, because he's a data guy, like data darling, good exit velos, all that stuff. Cam Schlittler, I've mocked those two in a deal for Yandy Diaz before because I just think they make sense for the Rays. And then the last player I'll throw in here, I'll throw in Mark Leiter Jr. The Rays may need some bullpen help. He's controllable. He's cheap. We know the Yankees can deal out of their bullpen. I love what Mark Leiter Jr. did for the Yankees in the playoffs, but high whiff rates, the kind of guy who's, cheap. Would the Rays maybe be interested? If you can get those three players in a deal, I think you could maybe get someone like Brandon Lowe without trading Spencer Jones, George Lombard Jr., or Jason Dominguez, which I think is the ultimate goal here. You don't want to trade Lombard, you don't want to trade Dominguez, and then maybe the Yankees want to hold on to Jones because you don't want to trade a guy if his value is not that high and his upside has the potential for him to, kind of bounce back and rebound his value. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think right now if the Yankees can get a controllable piece, because I keep saying you need to be proactive in adding a piece that's going to help you win a chip, in against a National League team that's going to be much better than us, most likely. So I'm willing to give some prospects that are nobodies right now. You know what I mean? Like Ben Rice could be somebody. We don't know. But, you're listing guys that they're not proven MLB talent. So therefore, I don't value them as future assets just yet. We've seen flashes of Ben Rice at the MLB level. So, like, at least we have something tangible. But the Yankees just drafted 8 freaking pitchers last year or something like that, right? Like a ridiculous amount of pitchers. You do not do that unless you were anticipating teams needing pitching, because pitching is getting more expensive, more rare, more difficult to find, more difficult to piece together. Like, that's why Max Fried's getting paid big money. That's why, all these Corbin Burns, 6 years, $210 million. Like, these pitchers are getting absolutely paid. Despite the fact, Ryan, that they're also extremely injury prone these days, right? Pitching is getting more expensive, and there's less demand, and they're injury prone. So the Yankees said, okay, like, how do we combat that kind of reality of the future where velocity is so important, but it also increases the probability of injury tenfold? We stack our prospect farm with pitchers. We develop them because we have a tremendous pitching development program. And then we parlay that into future trades, right? Because the Yankees now 4 or 5 years, they have a sick rotation for the next 4 or 5 years, if not longer than that, because they still have Luis Gil under contract for years and Freeze under contract for 8 seasons. Clark Schmidt's still pre-arbitration or in arbitration. So you're looking at a situation where the Yankees now have a tremendous amount of pitchers in their farm system, and they take big leaps. Like, we've seen some of these guys go from year 1 to year 2. They go from like low A to double A, and we're like, oh, okay, like that guy in double A is super valuable, right? So I think that, if you're the Yankees, like Drew Thorpe's a perfect example. He helped us get Juan Soto. You know what I mean? Like that's a part of the equation here. And I think that the Yankees are going to use this. They got big guys with big frames, as you're talking about, lots of good velocity, lots of good movement. If they develop these pitchers, they're going to be able to trade out of this strength that they have in the farm system, and it's going to allow them to reboot the roster at some point in the future because they're trading from a point of strength. I just wrote an article about Austin Wells. They were able to trade Jose Trevino and Augustin Ramirez for Jazz Chisholm at the deadline last year because they have a strong position group at catcher, and Austin Wells profiles as their future starter for the next decade. So it's like you can sell from positions of strength, and the Yankees having a deep pitching core in their farm system is the most advantageous thing you could have. So yeah, you're asking me if I would be willing to trade some guys that aren't really that well known, some pitchers that aren't well known? Absolutely, because they're just going to replace them with somebody else in this upcoming draft. Like that's just how it's been.
I also think people are obsessed with this notion that trades have definitive winners and definitive losers. We have seen win-win trades before. If the Yankees, let's say, net in this deal 5 WAR, right? Lowe averages 2.5 WAR each of the seasons. Let's say he plays about 105 games each year, provides good offense, and as a result of his production in the regular season, they play well, they make the postseason, and even just one of those years end in a World Series, the Yankees win the deal. I mean, not win the deal. The Yankees win. The Yankees get what they wanted, right? Now, you might go, it's a win, then you win. You win the deal, right? You won World Series because of it. Cool. But you got 5 WAR, right? 5 WAR. Let's say the Rays, when they acquire Ben Rice, they turn him into 6 years, or I think he has 5 years of control left. I need to brush up on that one, of consistent 2 WAR production. They get 10 WAR from him. Schlittler becomes like a good reliever for them, produces about 5 WAR in his rookie deal. Mark Leonard Jr. provides about 2 WAR in his time there. 17 to 5 WAR, Rays win the deal, right? Well, that's not exactly how that works, right? On one hand, the Rays got more value. They turned 2 years of Brandon Lowe, who ended up putting up 5 WAR, into 12 more WAR for them in various different position groups. That's a win for the Rays, who don't have the money to go out and make those acquisitions to just acquire 2 WAR a 2 WAR first baseman, which is about above average first baseman. The money to acquire 2 relievers to help their bullpen. What they do have though is, or what they didn't get in this window most likely is maybe they don't get a World Series. Even if they do, doesn't change what it would be for the Yankees, which is a win for them as well, right? So these are 2 parties who are looking to do 2 different things. The Yankees are looking to win the World Series in 2025. The Rays wouldn't be looking to acquire players that win them the 2025 World Series in a Brandon Lowe deal, unless they're just looking for MLB ready players, which I guess would change the equation a little bit here. Maybe Will Warren maybe is more attractive if the Rays want to win this year. Again, just kind of doubt that that's their mentality. They've never really been a sell out the farm or sell out all their financial assets for just 1 year of contention. They do not have the money to do it, do not have the money to replace their prospect, whereas as you mentioned, the Yankees do. The Yankees don't need to produce 2 starting pitchers every year from their farm system. They don't need to even produce a position player every year from their farm system. They can pay people. They have money, right? That's the whole point of being the Yankees. And that's an advantage because it means you can kind of pick and choose and very carefully decide which prospects are the guys you're going to invest in for Major League playing time and which guys you can ship off to another organization. Augustin Ramirez, for example, we raved about him this time last year. He got off to such a great start. Where was his fit on the roster? Right? Like, where was he going to play? Where was he going to help the 2024 Yankees? Where was he going to help the 2025 Yankees? They really like Austin Wells. I think it's the right choice. They traded him. They got Jazz Chisholm. Jazz Chisholm should help them for the next 2 years. Gave him a half year this year. So, win-win trades happen all the time. I get being scared to trade with the Rays, but I'm not afraid of giving up good players to get a good player. I'm afraid of not winning a World Series with Aaron Judge. That's my ultimate fear. I get that trading players who become good elsewhere hurts your chance of winning a World Series, but that's down the road. At that point in time, Judge may not be in his prime. Cole may not be in his prime. Half this team may not be on the roster. I mean, how many guys are going to be here in 2 years, right? You fast forward to the 2027 season ends. The 2026 season ends, and here are all your free agents or guys who have been free agents before. Jazz, Goldschmidt, Bellinger are all gone or eligible for free agency. In your rotation, you still have all these guys who believe under contract, which is a plus. But in your bullpen, Williams would have been a free agent after 2025. Weaver's a free agent after 2025. You get to your arbitration years for Cousins, Hamilton, Cruz. Cruz will be 37, I think, or 36 by then. Definitely not a player in his prime. Brubaker's a free agent. Loiza's a free agent, right? Like, Volpe's in arbitration. Schmidt, I think, actually might be a free agent. He's a free agent in 3 years. So you're in Schmidt's last ARB year. You're in Heal's arbitration years. Wells, Dominguez, Cabrera. Like, you're paying a lot more guys. You have to import more talent. That's when you need to rely on your farm system more in the next 2 years. Right now, you don't need to. So they didn't trade prospects for Cody Bellinger. They didn't trade prospects to get Goldschmidt. They didn't trade prospects to get Max Fried, although they did give up draft picks. Alex, I see no reason why the Yankees shouldn't be willing to trade prospects to get a player like Brandon Lowe, who clearly makes them better. He slots in perfectly here, man. I mean, the bat is just perfect. And it's, again, what I think it does is it gives us the peace of mind that the Yankees have another real hitter in their lineup. Like, it's not all right, the Judge show and hope Stan's healthy and hope that Jazz is as good as he was last year and blah, blah, blah. All this like mental gymnastics. It's all right, hope everyone's about as good as they were last year and we'll win the World Series. We'll go to the World Series, not win it. We'll go to the World Series. That's where my head's
Yep.
at.
I agree. I mean, listen, Brandon Lowe is a player that in 2020 had a 151 WRC plus, 136 the year after. It's been kind of up and down since then, 123 this past season, and he only played 107 games at a 2.2 WAR. So, if you walk away and you get a 3.5, 3.2 WAR player for 10 million, you have to give him some prospects and you get 2 years of control, and you can survive the injury inconsistencies he pops up with at times. I think you pull the trigger. And here's the thing, like maybe there's some better options out there. But the Yankees can't afford to waste this season and walk out a bum at second base or third base. They just can't do it. They can't afford to do it. The only thing, Ryan, that I could justify is going into the season and waiting until the deadline and then making that move just to make sure that they're healthy. Like just to make sure you could wait until the deadline, get a Brandon Lowe, and just make sure he's healthy. And that way he'll be a little bit cheaper too because the control's less. So maybe you go in that direction. You just survive. You're still a winning team at the deadline, and then you get a guy that's going to really make a big difference. And you know like what prospects you have in your system that are really maybe someone boosts their stock exponentially, and then you walk into that situation with a bit of a nice trade piece at disposal. So what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think that there's an avenue where the Yankees wait until the deadline during the summer and then make that big move to reinforce like we've seen teams do in the past?
The reason I'm firmly against it is because it's not like first base where Ben Rice is this young, intriguing, good data. Like you can see where he becomes a productive player. What is there in Oswaldo Cabrera that indicates he's a full-time third baseman? Is it that fun run in April? No. Like once April ended, you were like, God. I mean, we were like, God. Well, I guess when DJ comes back, right? And DJ came back, and he sucked. And let's be honest, he's not very good. He's old. He looked old. He looked washed. It wasn't. You could see it in the film. You can see it in the data. There's nothing that looks like, oh well, this is interesting. There's none of that there. I don't see a world where the Yankees can go into 2025 without, go into its opening day 2025 without an addition there. Does it have to be Brandon Lowe, who has an all-star appearance in his past, who has kind of those sexy offensive numbers? No. Would I love it to be Brandon Lowe? Yes. Are there other options? Yes. I guarantee you the Twins are opening on conversations for Willie Castro. Ha-Seong Kim is still a free agent. Although, again, don't know if a team's going to offer money to play shortstop. That obviously affects that. But that's two players right there. Two players that are not going to cost you $100 million, aren't going to cost you a draft pick, aren't going to cost you Jason Dominguez. No excuse. No excuse. Like, you have to make something work. I'm sorry. You could not have gone through your entire offseason not thinking, like, the biggest hole on this team outside of left field was second base and or third base. Wasn't first base. I know that first base was the worst producing group for them last year, but you can't just look at that because like Gleyber Torres was their second baseman, but he's not here anymore. So you can't just say, well, the Yankees were fine at second. Yeah, they had Gleyber there. Like he was their starter, and Cabrera played when he had to, and Jazz came in, and DJ played when he had to, and they didn't play basically the second half. Like that's how a good team operates their infield. Jazz and Gleyber. That's a pretty good infield. You do not have a player as good as Gleyber Torres currently on your roster for the infield. People are going to hear that, and they're going to get mad, and they're going to go, remember the errors and the stupid base running mistakes. And yeah, like that's why he's not here anymore. I totally understand that. Like, I'm not begging the Yankees. I'm not ripping the Yankees for not bringing back Gleyber, but I certainly will be more critical of not bringing back Gleyber if they don't do anything. You're talking about like a flawed but above average major league starter in Gleyber Torres to like a meh utility man in Cabrera. Like, Cabrera's versatile, that helps, but he's not like the best utility man in baseball. He's not like a Gold Glover at short, a Gold Glover at second, a Gold Glover at third, or like a 105, 110 WRC plus hitter, or like a premier base runner. He's just solid. He's solid and cheap. So that's fine. DJ LeMahieu isn't a good player. Like, DJ LeMahieu he probably doesn't deserve a major league roster spot, for being honest. He probably doesn't deserve to be on the team. I know that that's harsh. I know that that's cruel, but the only thing that's separating him, there are 30 million reasons why he's on the team, and none of them have to do with how good he is at baseball. They all have to do with how much money he's owed. That's a fact. Those are facts. Like, I like being positive and optimistic because I do think the Yankees warrant reasons to be positive and optimistic about them. but I don't BS. I don't, tell you, I don't want to tell you that, trash water or garbage water or sewer water is the finest wine you've ever tasted. I'm not going to tell you that a piece of steaming crap is filet mignon. I'm not going to do that, right? And that's what DJ LeMahieu is. And that's what propping him up as a major league starting player is. It's telling you that a steaming pile of crap that we all know is a steaming pile of crap. It smells bad. You can see it. You can smell it. It's crap. Telling you, no, that's our chef's finest steak. Like, well, it's not. You're just calling it that. That doesn't make it. You know what I mean? Like, we guys could throw it label anyone. Trent Grisham is a Gold Glove player. Who doesn't have a Gold Glove in the outfield? I'm pretty sure Brett Gardner never won a Gold Glove in the outfield. Is Trent Grisham better than Brett Gardner? I can start doing some stupid stuff like that. You want to paint the picture that DJ's a starting player? I know you're not doing it. I'm just saying in general. Anyone wants to paint that picture? Paint that picture. You're painting a wrong picture. You're telling Yankee fans that crap is meat. No one's doing it, or I don't think anyone's trying to do it. I just, I get really... The one thing that I think would send me into a spiral is seeing DJ LeMahieu play on opening day, barring any injuries. If they acquire Brandon Lowe and he's hurt on opening day, not happy about it, but are you going to blame Brian Cashman for bringing in Brandon Lowe? We just did a whole episode on that, so that's a little bit different. But if they go into the year and that's their plan, I'm going to be very upset, Alex. I'm not very happy.
There's no way that is actually their plan. I mean, with all the big moves they've made, there's just no way. Like you said, it's just the only reason DJ LeMahieu is on this roster is because he's owed $15 million for the next 2 years. Otherwise, that roster spot is way more valuable, being applied elsewhere. So we'll see what happens. Brandon Lowe is certainly a really intriguing option for the Yankees, another one to add to the list of players we'll be keeping tabs on, any rumors and news, but it's slow right now. We're in the dead of the winter months. We have 2 months left until spring training really starts to ramp up, which will be exciting, and we'll see what happens, but I don't get the sense that Cashman's in a rush. I get the sense that, well, let's see what teams have some injuries at the pitcher with their pitchers come close to the regular season, and then they'll try to trade Marcus Stroman, and they'll try to make some moves when the demand increases. And pitchers always get hurt in spring training, always. So God forbid it happens to the Yankees like it did last year with Cole. Hopefully we can avoid any issues like that. Another team needs an arm, eat some innings. Here's Marcus Stroman. Welcome to the team wherever we send him. So we'll see what happens, guys. We'll keep you guys updated as always on any further ideas and options that we kind of create. But Brandon Lowe is really an interesting one that we'll keep tabs on for you guys. As always, my friends, make sure to like and subscribe. Drop your comments in the YouTube section. Drop a 5-star review on Spotify and Apple. Have a great 2025. Happy New Year. And we'll catch you guys on the next Fireside Yankees episode.
Perfect.